Welcome to a galaxy far, far away. Here at the Cantina Podcast, we provide top shelf service, including rumors, leaks, news, and reviews. Come in, order a Loman Ale, and remember, no droids allowed. And hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cantina here on the GenreVerse YouTube channel and GenreVerse Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts from: Google, Spotify, Apple, all that good stuff. Check out lrmonline.com for all entertainment news, needs, and opinions. I'm Kyle. That guy frozen in time over there is Cam, and we are here to review Andor. Hey, there he is. He's going to be freezing constantly like he just did. I like that smile there. I think that might be your thumbnail picture. We're here to review Andor episode 7, right? No, excuse me, 9.
No, 9.
9. We got 10 and 11 and 12 left. Yeah, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Lots of good things going on here. Anime, Star Wars, Marvel, and everything else you guys can imagine. So get subscribed, get following, leave some thumbs up, down. Tell us what we're doing good. Tell us what we're doing bad, and we'll do our best to get better. Andor. God, people are sleeping on this show. I saw Star Wars Theory posted a poll asking which recent Star Wars project people like more, and they were overwhelmingly voting up Tales of the Jedi. And look, I get it if you like it, but honestly, is that better than Andor? Like, oh my god, how obsessed with your little cameos and past stuff that I'm sorry. We're losing we're losing audience here.
I think Tales of the Jedi is actually quite well, I would say it's like 60-70%. It's pretty good. But
yeah, I'm not saying it's would be bad.
It ain't Andor. Andor is up there so far as one of the best TV shows I've seen this year. Mm-hmm. And I'm including any kind of TV show, all the big sort of finales and things this year. So when I'm considering that, it's in my top 5 in terms of the likes of the Ozark finale, Better Call Saul finale. It's up there with these kind of shows for me. In terms of just the consistency, amazing. It's been great. So I just don't get it. But someone on one of my, was it the review for this week? It was the review for last week. Somebody said Star Wars minus the fun. And I just thought, I don't get that. I really don't get that.
Fun?
How that's like saying you can't have fun watching a serious show.
Yeah.
Why can we not?
Did they not watch Empire Strikes Back?
The majority of Empire was quite action packed and had a lot of humor in it.
It's got a whole crap ton of drama. It's got a whole crap ton of that's why it's character moments. I mean,
that's why it's the best film. But it's everything in measure. That's why Empire's so good. This is not as action packed as that is. It's not got the same humor that film had. It's probably the funniest Star Wars film as well.
I don't know. I find a lot of things funny in this just differently. Like Corporal Boy, man, he's hilariously sad and pathetic. We'll get into his creepiness later, but I mean, I get it. I understand. I mean, I've got a 9-year-old. He turns 9 this week. So I understand that youth is very different than I am, but I'm flabbergasted by the amount of people that look at this and go meh, and it's just like this is Star Wars, though. There was more going on in the galaxy than Skywalkers and Ahsoka.
But honestly, see, whereas I completely agree with you in principle, like I totally agree with you in terms of that the quality of this show is really high, but I'm not surprised there's this kind of reaction here, because I could kind of see that coming. That's the sad thing, because
the dumbing down of society
I
is
think,
a real thing.
But we've also had a we've had a change in Star Wars for the better or worse. We would maybe say worse. And
1,000 times worse.
And it's now a more all-encompassing franchise than perhaps it was.
I don't think it's all-encompassing. It's like freaking childhood and prequel encompassing. That's it.
What I mean is it covers a lot of different kind of styles, and a lot of it's went a little bit too sort of almost juvenile for us,
childish.
And I think we're excited about something that's going a little bit more mature for once. But I think there is, what I'm trying to say is that there's a crowd that come in and love that childish stuff, the stuff that we go, oh, that's a bit too much for us. They love that. And this show isn't ticking their boxes like some of that stuff doesn't tick our boxes. That's all I'm saying, because the fan base is not
I know.
that
I just don't
similar.
Understand it.
You know, the fan base is so wide that people come at it from so many different angles now.
This is the thing, though, Cam, is when I was 9-10 years old, I freaking loved Star Wars as it was, and I loved the things that came after. Especially games, movies, and comics. Games, movies, or not movies, games and comics and books. The movies that came later, I was too old for. But that gets us back to the original point: is I could fall in love with Star Wars and Empire and Jedi before I was 8 and 9 years old. But people, for some reason, don't want that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to make it more juvenile. It was all ages already.
That worked for us. And, you know, if you look at some of the other stuff, we have a lot of similar geek interests. Yeah, and there will be people that it would have worked for if they'd done it again. All I'm saying is they didn't do it again. And it brought in a different crowd of people that maybe wouldn't have went for that and never have fell in love with the original Star Wars in the first place, if not for perhaps the kind of lighter tone of the prequels. You know, it's a different generation. That's what I'm saying. You know, when we were becoming teenagers, whatever. You know, if you were into Star Wars, you were kind of similar. You know, because everybody was kind of into the same, just those 3 movies, and then it was, did you read the EU books or not? It was kind of one or t'other. And that was your Star Wars fandom. And yeah, they were really popular films, so there was a lot of people out there. But I don't think, you know, with population growth, with everything else that happens in that space of time, you know, it wasn't as big a fan base as it is right now. And some of the people that are fans now maybe wouldn't have been back then. They would have been into something else. I don't know.
At some point, things...
I mean, that's what it is. You just have to...
Yeah, it is what it is. Unfortunately, though, it makes me afraid that after season 2 of Andor, we're not going to get anything like this
again.
That
would ever again. Before we get into Andor, there was a little bit of a rumour this week that came from Daniel Richtman on his Patreon that he's heard that Adria Arjona, who plays Bix in Andor, is in talks for further things going forward that might go beyond Andor season 2. He even did mention a potential solo show. And normally when we hear that, you know, another character's getting a bloody, you know, spin-off show, you're like, ugh. But actually in this, if they could almost continue that kind of tone further on into the story, do you know what I mean, as it goes into like the actual OT trilogy, but with Bix's character, I'd be interested in that. Because we can't have Andor, I
don't want any more stuff between 3 and 4, of course, and the idea of telling more stuff in the OT. Look,
that's an area we haven't really played with too much. I
understand. You and I've had this conversation before about some of this stuff where it's like, yeah, we haven't seen certain aspects of it, but they can't leave well enough alone. They can't stop fooling around in the same time period. It's time to move on.
Let me just say, but that's what you would have, if you had been in charge of Lucasfilm, right? Let me just present this option. We may never have got Andor. because until you had actually seen it and went, oh, I don't know, you were really unsure about it. Because again,
I wouldn't say that.
3 and 4,
if I were in charge of Star Wars, we wouldn't have had all the other garbage set between 3 and 4. So I wouldn't have been upset and tired of the time period. I would have loved the political drama that focused on.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you didn't know it would be like that to begin with. So you were trepidatious going into Andor, right? Whereas, I was the same, but maybe slightly more. I think this could tick those kind of boxes. And when it does tick those boxes, we both say, right, we're really, really happy with this. All I'm saying is that if you then presented a show that followed low-level people in the rebellion, and it actually went beyond the story of Rogue One, and we saw things not with the main players, but people like Mon Mothma, the behind-the-scenes players, Genevieve O'Reilly, not Luke Skywalker and what Princess Leia and Han Solo were up to, but different components. If it was done with the same, I know Tony Gilroy probably said, that's him done with Star Wars after he's done this. That's kind of it for him. But if it was if someone was to take that as a similar kind of tone and carry that forward, I'd be interested in watching it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I could leave it at this point. I'm ready. Like I said, I've loved this, and I'm super excited for season 2. But I'm ready. Pick a distance, 1,000 years before or after. Anyways, speaking of time to move on, it is time to move on from Kyle bitching and moaning to us praising and worshiping. No, that's a very strong word, and just me being funny. But Andor episode 9. Super fun episode for us. Is it filled with swashbuckling adventure? Nope. But still incredibly fun. A lot of drama, a lot of tension, and one of the best endings I've seen in a while. I really just love the final lines. That final line is just perfect. But spoiler free, tell us what you thought about episode 9.
I thought it was fantastic. Like, I really enjoyed last week's, and it felt like this is the middle episode. But unlike maybe some of the other previous middle episodes, I just kind of felt like they took everything from last week and just turned up the dial on it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we just needed that extra week within it, and it's just the quality has just risen. For example, in terms of character development, there's a lot of characters that we met for the first time last week in the prison.
Mm-hmm.
And, now that we've had a bit of development with them, they've got their own little arcs that we can follow as we're going forward as well. And it's like the tension. They've just racketed up the tension and taken, I think, one of the most horrifying scenes that I've actually seen this year in any show, and I mean, I'm talking about like R-rated shows and stuff like that as well, is in this episode. And if you've got any imagination, at all, and you can kind of lose yourself in the moment of a show, then there's a really kind of horrifying moment that happens in this episode, and I thought it was so well done to pull that off in a completely PG-13 way, because it's that thing that is like as a parent, for example, somebody our age, just hits you in a way, and it kind of carries you into that. And the way the actress that is in this scene we'll get into it more in spoilers, kind of puts it across is just absolutely fabulous. And it's the performances that sell everything that's happening in Andor. Everybody feels like they're real characters in this situation and reacting to the events that are happening, and that the story is being built upon people's natural reaction to events rather than a pre-subscribed sort of previs of action scenes which we then need to fill dialogue around about. It's been built the right way, this show, ultimately, and it's so good.
I agree. I mentioned last week that I felt it was more filler, that maybe that particular episode should have been cut up and added to before, after. I didn't know exactly what, but I knew that it just wasn't as cohesive as it could have been. This feels like some of that stuff from the previous episode should have been attached into this episode, or some of this should have been put in that. However you want to word it.
I think you almost have to look back at it as and then go, okay, I kind of changed my mind a little bit now because it wasn't quite as much filler, because, you know, we sometimes have a bit of setup that we need to pay off the next week, and we get that.
Yep, but again, it kind of goes to the editing questions, and I'm not paid to edit Star Wars. I'm not a Hollywood editor. That's fine, but I do know when things feel off, and yeah, you can definitely say, hey, this next episode helped it out, made it feel better. Doesn't change the fact that they could have potentially made a better set of editing choices. I did really enjoy the episode, though. I think all three places, again, prison, Mon Mothma, and stuff surrounding the ISB, continues to just be this brilliant dance of narrative and story. It's just so damn good, guys. Please stop sleeping on this. Like, take your Ritalin. That's a joke. And settle down and focus on the characters and stories for a moment, because you're getting a lot of really good things here. A lot of really good things. This bumped up back into the A's for me, man. I gave this episode a good A-. What about you?
I gave it an A, because and it almost is bordering on an A+ again for me. And when we get into spoilers, I'll highlight some of my specific, just like there are some standout moments in this episode. There are quite a few standout moments, and that are just so well put together in terms of the direction, the sound design that goes along with it, that I think, despite it maybe not being the climax episode, I kind of feel like I'm building up to an A+ next week, if that makes sense, Kel. But actually, I think in hindsight, I may actually change my A to an A+ depending on how next week goes, because I don't know if actually the climax will be as good as this setup was. Almost, it depends what they do with it, but to build that tension the way that they did, I think in this episode, I was very impressed. So I've went up to an A+ from where I was when I did my written in the moment.
Very cool. Well, let's get into spoilers. Let's get into that, and let's start off at the prison. Here, what I figured was something that would happen in the last episode, where I was like, they keep going back to the prison workroom, and you keep expecting the old man to screw up or something like that. We finally get that. Yeah. We finally get that moment. He's old, he's frail, he's old and frail, like I said. Ends up having a stroke, but that's not the whole important part. But everything going on in the prison reminded me of other shows that deal with like prison communications and prison society, prison rules, if you will, and they did a really good job of showing that, but in Star Wars. The desperation to escape, the desperation for information, which comes to be a really serious point and gives us that beautiful ending, like I said. I cannot sing the praises enough about this. It reminded me of I'm constantly bringing up Battlestar Galactica, the reimagining, the 2000s series, but it reminds me when they go on to the prison ship and deal with the guy, Tom Zarek, I think was his name. The original Apollo played him in that, and he gets all political, and that type of drama in this again. The kind of big reveal in this, that there is no getting out of this prison. You're gonna work when you're released. They find out, one guy was released and then immediately brought back on another floor. Word got out, and
the floor was too close, basically.
They killed an entire floor, to try to keep the information of, hey,
which is what the power cuts were earlier on.
You're never getting out of this. I thought that was such a great reveal. It makes perfect sense. But I love that line. Here you have the dedicated foreman, played by Circus, who's just like, you do your time, you do it hard, you do it well, get the frack out of here. Like that. Get the frack out of here. And whenever Andor's like, trying to pressure him for information, he's like, nah, man, I'm not giving you that stuff. How many guards are on the floor? I'm not telling you anything like that. They find out about dude being released and being sent back, not actually being released, and everyone dying. I just, so how many guards on the floor? And it just starts, dude, it was so good.
Yeah. But it's just the change in him, you see he's kind of the one most resistant to what's going on, but we experience what he experiences throughout this episode, and it really kind of, he's starting, there's almost that, it's there but under the surface. But once as Earl dies, and he speaks to the doctor, and clearly this doctor is also a prisoner and been told, well, this is your job. But he ain't really, look at his medical kit. He's there to see what's wrong with you and inject a lethal dose into you if they can't fix it. That basically looks like his only purpose. And he's probably the same. He's got no way to get out, and it's either that or he works on the, doing what everybody else does. It's kind of one or the other at this point. And once he starts to realise all that, it's just the penny falls into place for everybody, and you just see that kind of turning. He's such a good actor, Andy Serkis. He's absolutely phenomenal in this episode, and I think it's almost him being just very ordinary last week that sells it as he makes that turn as well. But the tension's just so high the whole way through it. It's fantastically, the way it's shot and the way it's blocked off, as well, in terms of the way they shoot it when they're in those corridors, and they seem to be able to play with the scope of it at will, in terms of making it either feel claustrophobic or spreading it out and really seeing the size of this operation, so we get to feel both at the same time. And it's really a horrific thing of design here, this prison, this system that you can never get out of. There's actually shades of, if we look at Lucas going back to things like THX 1138 and 1984 and all these kind of things going on as well. And that's, it's presented in a way in the Star Wars universe. Even. Yeah. Presented in a way in the Star Wars universe that's absolutely believable, but it's almost hardcore sci-fi in terms of that sci-fi that's built on, taking a political idea and exploring it to the absolute maximum, that could be explored, by having this fancy technology that kind of doesn't exist in the real world. It's kind of just frightening what people could really do if they put their mind to it, to do something like that. It's absolutely great.
The worst thing a tyrant can do is give people nothing to lose. And that's what's happening in the Britain. That goes back to Leia's line in A New Hope.
Absolutely.
The more you tighten your fist, the more they slip through your fingers. Absolutely. And here you had the guy that was like, nope, I might disagree that I messed up, but I'm going to follow the orders, do my time, and go home.
On my life.
And once
you've created a rebel.
You've created not just a rebel, but you've created yet another movement, and a movement in a prison camp, making the war materials that you need. It's
and
so
if an
beautiful.
entire prison decides to escape at the same time, then you do have a problem, because we know this is a fairly understaffed prison. It's designed to psychologically keep them in rather than physically keep them in. But even in our own prisons, if an entire prison decides that they've had enough for some reason, you have a riot.
It's very messy
stuff,
There's a lot more of them than there are of the
and
guards.
we're talking about a massive amount of people in this prison. I mean, when we see the amount of levels, when you see those wide shots in the different corridors, and they've got the constant shifts going all the time, almost Kyle, it feels like we could have had an entire show set in that prison, and having and just having episode spending time with them as they learn how to communicate between different floors and plan what they're going to do, and cover people while they set things up and everything like that. You could have an entire series set in that prison and just be about their escape. And it would be gold. It would be gold.
That's what I keep telling people, man. Star Wars is more than freaking lightsabers and Skywalkers, and more than Ahsoka as well. Don't get me wrong. I freaking love Luke Skywalker. I freaking love Jedi and lightsabers, and I don't mind Ahsoka. I don't care about the cartoon version any, but I've enjoyed what she's done on screen, in live action, and this, I mean, you're 100% right. You could even take this same thing and deal with if you did this with First Order and Resistance prisoners or something like that. If this was the same quality of writing and storytelling, even though I care just as little about the sequels as I do the prequels, I would be into it.
You give a good story and people start caring. That's
exactly.
The thing. That's what I care about some of these characters in Andor now that I know I'm probably never going to make it.
Never see again.
Because
never see again.
Some of those guys are getting out of that prison, but like, for example, for me, I see Andy Serkis making a heroic sacrifice and not making it out. I just don't see him making it out, which is a shame, but almost that's why it's worth getting somebody that good in to do a scene like that, because it matters when we lose them at that point, because we have learned to care about them in such a small space of time, if you like. Care about them is maybe the wrong word. What's the word I'm looking for?
I'm not sure.
Interested in their character. Invested in them. Yeah, somebody that we get that invested in, that's the correct term I'm looking for.
Let's go ahead and carry on over to the ISB. We get some torture stuff. Always fun to watch people get tortured.
Well, I mean, this was I
joking.
thought this was a phenomenal scene.
The idea of using these beings whose audible I was looking to be fair. The way they use these beings that can affect people psychologically through their vocalizations, and the story and the setting up of the fear of people hear this, and we found them hiding under the floor.
It's the way he sells that as well, in terms of how pure evil he is, in terms of there's almost like a grin in his face. He enjoys this, he enjoys fucking, and that, it's just so creepy, so horrific an idea that most mature rated shows haven't come up with anything that horrific before, and you don't see anything. It's
nothing.
Adria Arjona sells it purely by her performance,
facial expressions.
The guy who plays Gorst is, as much as he's horrible, he's good. Do you know what I mean? In that way,
he's good at being horrible.
Yes, and the two of them in that scene together that's up there as one of the classic scenes for me. It's so well done. The way it's shot, the way it's it's written. It almost feels like they've spent so long getting the script right for that, so that it just flows in terms of how dark this story truly is. And then, we hear nothing of it, which absolutely was the right. I heard some fans saying, I almost thought for a second we were going to hear it in some ways. But the problem with that was that would never do what your imagination would do justice, because we then picture what she is experiencing, and it is whatever is most horrific for you to think about. And that's
I have heard some screams in my life in combat zones. I have heard things that are animalistic of fear and anger, and I've heard things that are freaking, I don't even know what the word would be, but grief, true grief I have heard. And I could imagine, when he was telling the story and he's like, in the children, and I just,
that's the thing, like, apply that
oh
to,
my
what it's
God,
like, if a child hurts himself and they scream in pain, that is a horrific thing right in itself.
Yes.
To hear that. Now imagine this scenario. It's it's like they keep amping it up, so they're being slaughtered and it's their dying screams. At the same time, it's a species whose vocalizations can have a psychic effect on other people, and you ramp all that up, and that is like one of the most inventive torture.
I mean, I heard that's like things in my mind during that scene. Like you said, they didn't need to have any actual sounds, because I know not everyone can.
That's a genius.
But I could project things that I've heard. I've heard the scream of somebody missing body parts. You know what I'm saying? Like it's rough. So I love that they didn't create, because it's really hard to recreate those types of emotions. One of the best
you absolutely should allow the viewer to use their own imagination there. I mean, you will get some people that don't have a good imagination, and maybe that scene isn't as powerful for them because they can't put themselves into that way of thinking. I get that. Like, my sister loves a lot of the same kind of movies as I do, but she's not got a strong imagination. That's just not her strong point. So for people that do have a strong imagination, it's so powerful. You wouldn't believe it. And yeah, absolutely. I think it's almost like it's an Emmy award-winning scene right there for me.
Yeah. And it's not the only one in this episode, because as you alluded to earlier, there's another situation with ISB, including freaking agent, whatever, blonde. Why am I so bad with their names? Dedra. Thank you. Her scene with her stalker was so uncomfortable. A million times uncomfortable. You're looking at this guy and you're like, oh my God, you are like 2 seconds from saying we are destined to be together. Oh my God.
It's like we unwrap another layer of Silas, at this point, in terms of that, he almost, it's like he has an authority.
He's going to Norman Bates out sometime.
He's almost got an authority kink. Do you know what I mean? And because we've seen him spend time with his mother, you kind of know that's where that's coming from. It's almost like he's looking for that dom. He wants to be dominated by this like female character. You can almost read that and see where it's come from his mum. But he's rejecting her and he's moving more towards Dedra instead. And that what she stands for, as much of a hard ass as she is that it's not her herself that particularly turns him on. It's what she does and what she stands for that he just has a hold on for. And you can absolutely, I'm wondering whether she's going to end up making a big mistake by taking him on as an assistant, because did you notice that I think her current assistant is getting a little bit too pushy. And I noticed a couple of looks from her when he took the initiative a couple of times this week. Did you notice a couple of looks from her?
I did.
I wasn't expecting to do that.
That goes back to the first couple of episodes where you and I were talking about their competition with each other,
And what she should be doing is that's what you or I would want in an underling, right? That's what we would want.
Please aspire to be above and beyond me.
This is where we see the failings of the Empire as well, because they're not set up like that. And I actually think it'd be really good to show how that she gets rid of him because he's a threat and brings in someone who will be totally dominant by her, and it actually becomes her downfall. Because that's how the Empire fails in the end, by not having the best people in the best jobs, but the most ruthless people in the highest jobs.
I'm going to potentially have a hot take, but I'm going to say I will be disappointed in her character if she does bring Silas on, especially after this moment. This weird, creepy thing outside the ISB headquarters there on Coruscant was it just oozed. If she now, I could see where she goes back to him to get additional information or try to use him as a tool, and he ends up
see this
going psycho out on her
thing,
there,
a long-term thing. But
I don't know.
I mean, I
would be slightly disappointed
as her
in
being
her for
scared
doing
of him, like she should run from him because he's creepy. I think she is going to get that. What he wants from me is kind of what I want as well, is to have somebody to kind of just push over. And maybe she will end up like sleeping with him as a domineering thing or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of pointless. It's almost like it doesn't need to be sexual in any way at all. No. Really, it's about, because they're both totally about their careers. That's all they're interested in.
Yeah.
And I think it would just be interesting to show how that is an attractive option to take. Actually, it's almost like that. Would you call it an old man, manager that gets the young girl secretary in with the short skirt on and stuff like that. That whole kind of 70s, if you like, meme, which was absolutely true.
Some Mad Men type stuff going on.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. It's almost like that a little bit in reverse for me here. So I think it would be interesting to explore that further. And I don't think we've went this far with Silas to not explore his character further. So to me, that's the only solution, is that you push them together and you have this weird, let's see where this weird, uncomfortable relationship actually goes, because I think that's actually where the drama is between the two of them. But hey ho, we'll see.
We'll see what happens. And then the last kind of area to cover, of course, Mon Mothma. We get to see the what's the word I'm looking for? The care for the galaxy has declined.
I think
you see that in
the right word.
You think apathy would work?
There's an apathy to her cause, to her. There's no one's really interested. They don't want to hear it. It's a waste of people's time. It's that almost saying, I've tapped out. That's what they're saying here, which is really quite rude, but clearly that's the way the Senate is now. It doesn't feel like they would have got away with that back in the days that we saw the Senate in the prequels, when Paps was still legit, at that point. But that's kind of where we are now.
I told Christine that it was similar, not in the same context. I said, but it's similar when a pariah state like Iran gets up and talks at the UN. You will have a crap ton of countries just walk out and not even give them the light of day, the time of day. I said it's kind of similar to that with the turning off the lights there in the Senate. Basically, we're done.
But it's so visually well done, because we wouldn't have seen people walking out. You wouldn't get that. You'd have had to close up everybody. But what they did with the lights just told you the same thing, much simpler visually. And you really feel bad for her, as she's sitting there. And, and what she's saying, that we have to be careful what we're doing here before we give the Empire too much control. And it's like, tap out. And it's just, it really is quite shocking. And no wonder someone like her has, again, this is what I wrote in my review. This is really shown as this episode where the rebellion comes from. Because as much as Jen could say in Rogue One, rebellions are built on hope. Yeah, you hope to win, but where did they really come from is when people have just fucking had enough. People have had enough, and you push them over the line. And everybody's got their own line.
You try to tax our
when you
our
raise
stamps,
the line,
our tea, and then we gotta give George
we've got
the bird.
To pour the tea in the well, let's pour this tea into the drink. Ha! Take that.
It makes a lot of sense.
Thousands of miles away. Anyway, you probably all did talk a bit more like that in those days. I don't think the American accent had quite kind of picked up yet. Anyway, that's for another discussion for another time. I'm always interested in how the American accent came about, but that's
I am too. How did the Southern one come to exist? Like mind-boggling. So
it's like it's funny how it changed so much from when you most of the people that brought over all came from England and, you know, or Scotland or Ireland that spoke English in the first place and had their own accents in it, and then it just went whoop and changed into something different.
Last thing, because I have to get this out. Did you know that there was a group within America that was so anti-British that they wanted to actually make our language German? They wanted to go with German instead of English. Just the thumb themselves. Just the thumb that eye again.
Yeah, once. If never wasn't already something
no,
in.
You're 100% right. And one of the best things in this, so this is going to be some more legalese sort of law of war speak, but you'll often hear the one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. Well, legally here on Earth, at least, there's an actual legal difference. You are a insurrectionist, a freedom fighter, a rebel, so long as you're attacking legitimate military or government targets, and that's how you're furthering your political cause, by going after the current political machine in their military. If you attack civilians for your political cause, that's terrorism. This has been doing a really good job at showing the people that are willing to step up to, you know, which line and which one are they willing to cross. And they've done a really good job so far at showing how much of the rebellion was not aimed at their fellow imperial citizens. It was aimed at the empire.
Because always things do get messy, so I could absolutely see that coming at some point, because we know that Saw's guys were for example, get a bit too, you know, and someone is going to go over the line. But that's where it takes somebody like Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, before his planet get destroyed, to pull that together and focus it into a righteous cause, you know, because Mon Mothma is a righteous person. She's not doing this, you know, like this week she's appalled at the idea of what we are basically a criminal, you know, for example.
100%.
Clearly her family are good people. Yeah, they've had money, but they've been quite charitable. And her and her cousin have kind of, that was a cool connection to find out Vale was Mon Mothma's cousin as well. And to find out that they could quite easily just sit back and be rich and not have to worry about it and let all this stuff happen in the background. But, you know, they are the socialites, if you like, that are taking part and, you know, ultimately end up becoming leaders because they're a figurehead. You know, Mon Mothma's a figurehead, so why would you not? You know, like eventually when she has to flee and go into hiding and become a more active part of the rebellion, it's easy to pick somebody like that then as a figurehead for your operation, and Leia in the future, you know, for similar reasons. You know, the daughter of the Bail Organa, Alderaan was destroyed. That's a great rally point for a leader as well, you know. But
indeed.
But there's so much going on, and Genevieve O'Reilly's been brilliant. I think I forget her name, but the girl that plays Vel is really showing her acting chops as well. I love everything that's going on there. To be honest, it's just really, really well done, the way they're kind of setting all this up.
And it's interesting on how close everyone to her and her home planet. You know, her cousin is Vel.
Yeah, so Vel's her cousin.
Her cousin, her childhood friend, which the dad apparently at some point told the daughter that was an ex-boyfriend. It's interesting with her on how close she keeps the ties, yet the closest to her husband and daughter, the ones who should be closest to her, are the ones furthest away, and it almost makes you wonder was it always because he and her didn't see eye to eye, or you start to wonder, did Mon start putting distance earlier, distance that we haven't seen between her and her family, and they just grow apart over these first
couple of, you know what I'm saying? Do that with, like, for example, your kid, but with a husband, I don't know. Certainly, if he starts to become what you hate about the establishment, you could fall in love with him. But
he by putting her daughter at a distance, I mean, to protect her from the dangers of knowing and things like that.
I would say,
and that creates some resentment. And I'm not saying that, you know, the
secrets
daughter and
never
dad,
really work, and it'll absolutely cause resentment between them all. And her daughter, funnily enough, might respect her if she knew what she was really doing, but her daughter doesn't see that side here.
So I love that I can think about those things with this show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Let's as much as I love
we get
Mandalorian,
to explore what the Empire really could do when it was motivated in this way, and how a rebellion was absolutely necessary, and how the Empire really helped create it themselves, because they just gripped too tight, they pushed too far, too fast at the same time, and every time they did it just the revolution against them grew each time until, you know, they get beat.
Yeah, and like I said, I while I really do enjoy the Mandalorian character moments you get with Mon Mothma and like I was talking, the familial ties and thinking about things that are happening off screen before this series and the years leading up to this series. I don't do that a lot with Mando characters. I did it a bit with Mayfield, especially after that season 2 episode where you're just kind of like wanting to.
Again, it was a proper drama scene where we were really exploring someone's character.
Love that. Yeah. I love that there are these. I wonder what's up with Andy Serkis's character. I wonder what is it at home. Is there a wife and a kid of still alive? Is there? Were they murdered? Are they in their own prison? It doesn't matter. But I'm invested in them like that. I want to know. That's what I'm saying. Like they feel.
This is the thing. This is where
I don't want it told. I don't want it told.
This is where like people get Solo wrong, for example, but people wanted to know the answers to these questions. But we don't really want to see them. We want to speculate on them, and we want to imagine some of this stuff for ourselves.
But they're outside of, like I said, a couple of moments in Mando. I don't do that with any of the other characters. It's what you see, what you hear, and that's
what you get.
And
I mean, if you think about Andy Serkis's character's sort of turn in this week, and compare that to the guy in Obi-Wan Kenobi who helps them, and in the end, he's like, I'm not helping, and he's like, shit, I'm going to help you. Just compare those two, which are similar almost kind of arcs, but one is arc if, let's not make this too complicated so the 4-year-olds can pick it up as well. And one is, this is how this would really happen in real life, and therefore it's more powerful.
Exactly.
That's all you need to say.
It matters. It matters more, ladies and gentlemen. That'll about do it for me, man. You got anything else you wanted to bring up on this episode?
I mean, just it's phenomenal. Can't wait till next week to see it again. Best show on TV right now. Three more,
and I'm both excited for it to end because I want to see this story wrap up. But then I'm going to be like, man, nothing until February.
We're going to have to wait. And, it's going to be like 2024 before we get Andor Season 2.
Season 2, yep. Mando Season 3, February of next year.
February that's of 23. The news of the rumor anyway.
Deadline ran us. No. The Deadline story is something else. Oh, Sandman 2. That's what I had Deadline on mine for.
Yeah, no. So the Mando is a rumor from Bespin Bulletin.
Okay, it's just a rumor.
So we don't have that confirmed, no. But we kind of knew it was going to be February anyway. So or maybe it came from me. I tell a lie. It didn't come from Bespin Bulletin. They covered it. That's where I saw it initially. It came from Making Star Wars. Who, as you know, do have a pretty strong hit rate for this sort of stuff. But, at the same time, we'll just have to wait and see because dates can change. And they also covered a potential trailer date and said it would be Christmas Day. I just have a hard time buying that one. They would release a trailer on Christmas Day when none of us that work in the media industry are working, so can cover it and talk about it and put your trailer out there. I mean, social media will take care of itself, but people are with their families on Christmas Day, so I just think it's a really bad day. So I'll believe that when I see it. But And we know what they're like for trailers. They can change their mind at the last minute. Boxing
At
Day,
the very
I
last
could see
minute.
them doing.
That ain't a real holiday.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's not considered a
around.
holiday everywhere.
Yeah, you know, I often have wondered where why is that? Why did that do that? I have often wondered how. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I have messed up. There we go. And now I can't even think of.
Well, we're talking about.
I know I had a Boxing Day thing and Christmas thing, and it's gone as I was trying to load the browser up. I messed something up.
Because we came here for Star Wars, not to talk about Christmas Boxing Day. But hey, that's Kale and Cam. Sometimes we just go off on crazy tangents.
And you guys can hear those tangents here on the GenreVerse Podcast Network and YouTube channel, as well as check out other tangents I get off on with Manny, because, well, the Daily Cog is that type of show where we can just talk about whatever in entertainment. What's that? And his camera does work indeed. We've also got Breaking Geek Radio. They do general entertainment, geek and pop culture, long form podcast. We've got Marvel Multiverse Mayhem doing news and reviews on the Marvel side of things. Anime-Versal Reviews, AVR Squared covering all things anime, and then Genre Shot Trailer Reactions. If it's not a reaction video, then it gets an audio podcast. There's no point in putting reactions in audio. So, but if you dig podcasts, check out Google's, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and all of our content goes up on lrmonline.com, as well as written reviews, celebrity interviews that go on the LRM YouTube channel as well. Subscribe there. Leaks, rumors, news aggregation, opinions, all sorts of really great things. One-stop shop for all your entertainment news needs and opinions. Cam, my brain's crashing. I'm pretty tired.
I think we can wrap up. I just want to apologise to everybody for the frozen pictures, because we had it last week as well, but we didn't realise last week that it was an ongoing issue. Unfortunately, so I will be troubleshooting whatever that is this week. So next week for episode 10, hopefully you will get to see my ugly Scottish mug again, and not frozen next time. So apologies to viewers on YouTube for that. If you're on podcast, you don't care anyway.
Yeah, it's all right. We're all chuds around here except Christine. Jonesy's handsome dude.
Yeah, Jonesy's got a handsome gene.
We'll talk to you guys later. Bye. May the force be with you.